I'm going to have to talk about finance, and it's really important because I'm very fond of saying it's a gift until you're paid. And it truly is a gift until you're paid. Um, I really find it quite dispiriting that the first time that quite a number of businesses ever come to UKTI is when they've had a big problem. They've sent some goods to a distant part of the world, and 6 months later they've never been paid, asking us to help. Actually, it is much better if we're involved in the early stages, or indeed you as a business plan in the early stages how you're going to be paid. Because the key thing is, you have to plan for this, and you have to make sure that you agree in the contract. Nobody is going to be frightened off by your saying, right, we've got a contract, now let's discuss how we're going to be paid. Now, if you're a small company and you're getting started, please don't be afraid of asking for cash up front. There's nothing wrong in that. And if you've got great products or services and somebody wants to use you and they understand that you're starting off in this game, they will pay you up front. Not always, and ultimately you'll move onto other areas. But you need to think about it and make sure that you're being paid, covering yourself in the appropriate way. You need to think about foreign currencies here. Getting paid is fine, but getting paid in the appropriate currency is, of course, something else. When the foreign currency exchange rate might differ, if you're quoting in a foreign currency and you're allowing for that to be, let us say, 2 to 1 to the pound, if that slips and suddenly it's 3 to 1 to the pound, then what you were getting in at 2 to 1 is now worth a lot less because it's 3 to 1. And your ultimate payment will be significantly reduced. So you need to think about foreign currencies and making sure you use things like hedging, or you take spot prices or whatever. Talk to your bank or your financial institution and make sure that when you're dealing in foreign currencies, you're not being a foreign currency speculator. You're making sure that you have a degree of certainty and you know that you've locked in your contract at 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 or whatever the appropriate foreign currency exchange rate is at that time. You can use a whole host of other instruments, but you really do need to be careful and make sure that you're getting that level of advice. We turn now to letters of credit. Very important and a good way of ensuring that you do get paid. Please make sure if you ask for payment by a letter of credit that you have an irrevocable confirmed letter of credit, confirmed by a London clearing bank, because confirmed by some other banks wouldn't be worth the paper it's written on, but make sure it's agreed. And when you're dealing with a letter of credit, if the letter of credit comes in and says, I need to have invoices in septuplicate, don't give them 6 or 5 invoices, give them 7 invoices. Because when a person is going through the details of the letter of credit in the payment bank, if you've not given 7 invoices, you'll default and they won't pay. It's very clear. It will talk about pro forma invoices, bills of lading, airway bills, or whatever. Do what it says. Make sure that what's written on the invoice is what is said in the letter of credit, and you will make sure that you get paid. If not, you can be in trouble. There are other things you might want to consider in terms of getting paid. You might use drafts or bills of exchange, and these move the ownership and where you pass on ownership of the goods to your customer to different stages. And again, you need to think about those. But ultimately, and what is much more common and where you need to see probably yourself getting to, is you will be dealing on open account. Now here, that means that you're going to deal with 2 issues on open account. One is risk and one is cash flow. Clearly, if you've got no guaranteed method of payment, you're simply relying on your customer to pay you at an appropriate time. That could be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever you've agreed. There is a degree of risk, and you might want to consider taking out export credit insurance. I'll come to export credit insurance again shortly. But you want to think about cash flow. In another video, I talked about the process of taking an order and satisfying that order. If you're in plant and equipment, you might find that when you receive an order, from that moment it might take you 6 months to build the equipment. You're out of pocket. You're investing in materials, plant and equipment purchases, labour and everything else to build your product. You then put it onto a ship, onto the high seas. That might take 6 or 8 weeks. And you're then offering 30, 60, 90 days payment. You can be out of money for a very long time. You need to factor in those working capital, those cash flow issues, so that you're making sure that the price reflects the degree of risk and the working capital requirement. Credit insurance, very important. Why is it important? Well, one is it can guarantee you a large percentage of payment if your customer defaults. Your banks, other financial institutions are available, and credit insurance companies themselves provide those products and services. And if, to control your cash flow, what you're doing is you're discounting or forfeiting your invoices, very often your financial institution will only discount those invoices or pay you in advance against those invoices for invoices that are covered by export credit insurance. You need to be very careful and make sure that you've understood all the conditions of those financial instruments. I go back long enough in the 1980s that we used to use an organisation called Export Credits Guarantee Department to cover all our export sales. That's a government institution, and it covered SMEs and large-scale organisations against the risk of default of payment. That organisation was sold off in the 80s and moved out of the SME market. But I'm delighted to say that we've now rebranded that, and it's called UK Export Finance. And there are products available that if you have difficulty in getting the appropriate cover through your bank, through your financial institution, UK Export Finance is there to help. It's there to help small and medium-sized businesses. Some of the products that they have are, first of all, an export credit insurance, not on a whole book cover here, but on a case-by-case basis, so that if you find there's a particular market or a particular customer that your export credit insurance company won't cover you for, it's very likely that UK Export Finance will be able to step in and help you. It can be very important. There is a scheme for export working capital. I talked about the implications on your working capital and how that extends over time. UK Export Finance has a scheme to help you finance through that programme. There's also a bond support scheme which has been introduced. Sometimes when you're dealing in the public sector or for major contracts, performance bonds or bid bonds are required, and UK Export Finance has a product that helps you to be able to produce those bonds and to be able to compete without having to cover the whole value of the bond, which can be substantial. In September of 2013, UK Export Finance launched a scheme called the Direct Lending Scheme. This is something that's completely new, but it is really important benefit, and it's where UK Export Finance will help give loans to overseas companies to buy British goods and expertise of between 5 million and 50 million pounds. They have to be capital goods or capital services, but that's hugely important. It's a real advantage to British firms to be able to say, yes, we've got great products and services, but you can go to UK Export Finance and they will help you with a loan to buy our products. So a really good way forward. So in summary, it's really important to make sure that you agree everything up front. Be prepared. Do not be afraid to ask for payment. It's a gift until you're paid. Vitally important that you get it right, because many more firms have gone bust over the years through lack of cash, more so than through lack of profitability.